Hey, what's up? So for today's video, I thought I'll speak a little bit about a project that I did as part of one of the modules that I had at the University of Birmingham as part of my master's degree. So my master's degree was in mechanical engineering. So this video is gonna be a bit mechanical engineering oriented, but the process of writing a report remains the same irrespective of specialization that you're pursuing. The report that I have open here was for one of my modules, which was called as Research and Professional Methods. So this module was a 20 credit module. So this is not my final dissertation. This report that you see on the screen was for 50% of the mark. My topic for this specific report was to evaluate some parameters of a process and use design of experiments. Design of experiments is where you try to mix and match all the parameters that you have at hand and try to find out what the best parameters are for any given process. I'm pretty sure that if you're not a mechanical engineering student, you're not going to understand a lot of this. So I'm not going to go into the technicalities of the project itself. Now that you know what the topic of the project was, a journal paper is usually divided into sections. As you can see, the very first section is called the abstract. Now, the abstract is sort of a summary of the entire report. So when somebody goes through your abstract, they should be able to determine what the project was about and what the findings were and what the processes or how you went about reaching the conclusions and the conclusion itself. So it should be punchy and it should contain all the details that is required for a person to decide whether it's going to be worthy of their time to go through the entire paper. And if you make this good enough, you get real good brownie points because abstract is really important. The keywords are supposed to indicate what your whole paper is about. So my paper was dependent on some parameters which were cutting speed, feed rate, and the rest of the stuff that you see there, which are technical, and I'm not going to dig deep into that. And the next section is called the literature review. Now, literature review is to go online to find material that is relevant to your paper and to find stuff that people have already written or stuff that people have already researched. Go through them, read them, understand their points, and comment on them. So it's basically like a movie review, but you're only reviewing stuff that people have written or published, and you add your thoughts to it. You either agree with them or you disagree with them, and you also indicate that you've gone through those papers, you've done your research, you've understood the stuff that you're about to write. Once I was done with the literature review, so my literature review here is also split into subsections. So the first sort of literature or the first sort of research that I went into was to look into high-speed machining in this case. It could be anything. So if you are doing a business degree, your literature review could be reviewing something that you read on Forbes or a statistical data of how a company's stock was doing, stuff like that. And the second subsection was Taguchi design, which is a sort of an experiment of designs. So Taguchi is a guy who developed a process to, let's say you had to combine two things and you had three sets of things for each thing. Taguchi method helps you to determine which of those things are going to be very complementary and which of those two things are going to be the best possible combination to use. That's as simple as I can make it. So once I was finished with the literature review section, then comes the methodology. So the methodology section is where you indicate the sort of method that you are gonna use in order to reach the conclusions that are shown on the journal paper. So here you can see the methodology that I used. So the methodology is supposed to tell the reader the sort of methods that you took in order to arrive at the conclusion. You've got to let the reader know the assumptions that you took or the sort of experiments that you conducted or the environmental conditions, or if this was statistical, you tell them, you know, the sort of samples that you took, stuff like that. Basically lay out everything that a reader needs to know about the methods that you used. This is specific to my paper. I had to write a little bit about the design of the experiment. This section is a bit about how the machine was set up in my case, and the environmental conditions, the cutting velocity, the feed rates that I used, stuff like that. Once the reader knows about the methodology that you used and the sort of things that you did or the steps that you took, the next section is the results and conclusion. Here's where you present your results, comment on those results, and talk a little bit about why you think you obtained that sort of results, or your results are in line with what you initially set out to find. So in my case, I used the Taguchi method. I also analyzed the variance of my obtained results. Finally, I also plotted some of the effects on the use of different parameters, and then I arrived at my conclusion saying that here's what I found, and these are the most significant factors, and a combination of these factors would actually give us the best possible results and stuff like that. Finally, the references section. So you've also got to be careful about the references section, because if you use any sort of literature, or if you even do a Google search, you're supposed to reference it. The best way to reference it is to go to this website called CiteMe. CiteMe is a website where you can create citations. So let's say you went and visited a website, you just copy paste the website, and it's going to generate a citation that you can copy and paste on your report. It's very easy to use. You should probably start using this as soon as you start writing your journal paper, because once you're done writing the paper, there can be so many references that you could forget that you actually visited some websites. Sometimes the project entails that you should use a certain type of referencing system. For example, there's Harvard, the MLA system, the APA system. So usually the default is the Harvard referencing system. So make sure that you reference everything that you look up online. This paper that you see isn't a very good paper, to be honest. Even after all this work, I ended up getting 67 out of 100. That was because they said that the abstract wasn't good enough. A lot of other things were apparently not good enough. So in order to get more than 70 or 80%, your paper needs to be fit to be published. It's a very hard thing to do unless you spend a lot of time. I did not spend a lot of time on this. I spent very little time. That's what a report looks like for one of the projects in Masters in Mechanical Engineering in the United Kingdom. So give me a shout if you'd like to look at other reports or other projects that I've undertaken as part of my master's degree. And like always, it would be awesome to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you look up my profile on YouTube, there's a list of all my socials. Feel free to connect with me and let's have a conversation. Thanks for your time. Peace.